Moscrip.
Well, it's good to be here. The last time I was in this particular auditorium, it was the worst experience of my life. So I'm expecting you guys to make it better today. If you ever want to see what I look like when I lecture, go look at the YouTube video on BYU about me lecturing in this auditorium. It's painful. I don't lecture. I'm here to answer your questions because you're all interested in entrepreneurship. You're interested in ideas. You're interested in starting businesses. What questions do you have? State your name.
I'm Julie.
Last name?
Little. In your little information sheet that I read, you said that you made your business started with like a lot of word of mouth marketing. How did you make that work for you, and how did you like further your business?
Right at the beginning.
Did you tip her off?
I did not tip her off.
Okay. So the question was word of mouth marketing. If I were to say, what is word of mouth marketing? You're all entrepreneurs, right? What is word of mouth marketing? How would you do it? Today you'd pull out Twitter or Facebook or something like that. Okay, think 1995. Okay? Amazon.com has not even officially launched as a website yet. How do you do word of mouth marketing? And how do you make it work? I guess better question is word of mouth marketing important? By raise of hands, how many of you feel that word of mouth marketing is important to your business? Okay. In my business, 98% of my customers sign up by word of mouth. 98% by word of mouth. Word of mouth marketing is critical. So, how do you make word of mouth marketing work?
Sacramento, and same thing, about 92% of my successes come from word of mouth. I've been through holding events, through offering referral services, and compensations for that.
Okay. I didn't do any of that. I guess I kind of blew it. Yeah.
Each business is different.
Each business is different. But let me do just a quick little demonstration about how word of mouth marketing works. To do this, I am going to need a dollar bill. Has anyone got a dollar bill? Oh, you got to pull it out. I mean, no, you can sit down. It's fine. I'll come up to you. You willing to give me that dollar bill?
Sure.
Oh, awesome. We've got Coke money. Here, I'll give you 20.
Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. Appreciate that. Yeah, not a bad deal, right? Anyone got a $5 bill? You got to pull it out and wave it.
Lady at the back there.
I'm not seeing any $5 bills wave. Oh, there's a $5 bill. Oh, I'm going to get my exercise today in this classroom, I can tell. Are you willing to give me that $5 bill? You are? Okay. Well, let me see what I've got here. I've got a dollar bill. Let's see. How about I give you a 50? Yeah, you like that? $50 bill? Yeah. Okay. Anyone got a $10 bill? Just by chance?
Oh, yeah. I'm an American Express.
Anyone's got, okay, we got a $10 bill here. Are you willing to give me that $10 bill? I appreciate it. Thank you. We've got dinner now tonight. Isn't this how business works? You know, some people get value, some people don't. No. You're absolutely right. I'll give you $100 for that $10 bill. Thank you. Now we can eat at Wendy's. We're going to go big time tonight. Okay. Anyone got a $20 bill? Okay. What have you just experienced? You have just experienced the power of marketing and word of mouth marketing. Now, your name that got the $100 bill? Rachel. Rachel, are you going to tell anyone about what happened in your class today?
Yes.
Oh, yeah! Okay? The secret to a successful business is to have people say good things about you. What's the number one good thing that you can have in your business? You can have a good product. My product that I make turns $1 bills into 20s and 5s into 50s and 10s into 100s. I don't have a problem getting my customers to talk about my business, which is why my business has grown and flourished so well. So when you're thinking about your ideas, you're thinking about your products, think about how it's going to change that person's life. If I help each one of you, if I said, okay, every one of you give me a $5 bill and I'll give you 50, how many of you would go out to the ATM machine to get $5 bills? Yeah, all of you, right? Okay? That's how word of mouth marketing starts. You have a great product, and then all of a sudden, people start talking about it because it's helping them. Your business in Sacramento, when you talk about your events and things, isn't your business to provide a great service? It's not because you held the event that people are calling to use you. It's because people have already seen what you can do.
And that's ultimately why people buy the services, because it's great.
There you go.
But you got to do some marketing stuff.
You got to do some marketing, and I hate marketing. That's why imagine that. My marketing professor when I was in college, mind you, the first marketing class I took was in graduate school. My professor stands up, and it's a 30-chapter book. It's a big old thick thing. Any of you ever taken marketing? Yeah. It's that big old thick book, 30 chapters long. The professor comes in day one and says, okay, I don't have time to teach this class. This is a remedial class in marketing. I don't care if you're master's students. Read the first 15 chapters. We'll take the midterm in 7 weeks. Read the final 15 chapters. We'll take the final in 8 weeks after that. Other than that, I'll see you later. Don't even bother coming to class because I'm not going to be here. Don't stop by my office because I don't have time to talk with you. I paid for that class. And of course, the very first question that we asked was, is there going to be a curve or something on this test? And he said it's simple. You show up, you answer one question correctly on the test, and you're guaranteed a B. I love education. It's so wonderful. Next question. Yes, in the back.
So, promising politely. A lot of businesses just come out into the market at the right time. Timing just seems to be everything. Can you talk about your experience with when was the right time or when was the wrong time?
Okay. The right time for a business is when you can get a first mover advantage is always huge. So if you can be the first one to get your idea down, that's always huge. The wrong time is if you're doing something that's technologically ahead of time. So if you look at the CV that I sent you, there are several companies in there that failed. A couple of them failed very specifically because we were way ahead of the technology curve and didn't have the communications that we have today. And so they were kind of doomed to failure. Great technology ideas, but just not adoptable by the industry or by the world. So always good to get good feedback from others around you before you launch something. Okay, next question. If you can't tell, I really like questions. If you don't have questions, this class will be really short. Okay, over here.
So you talked about how you had several failures, but in those businesses that you listed, they were across a wide span of different things. So what sparked the variety?
Necessity a lot of times sparks the variety. So like our property management firm that we have, all of a sudden we were owning a lot of property. And you don't want your property in your business because if someone sues your business, they can take your property as well. So, you start dividing things out by liability and by risk, and also by kind of I hate to call it asset class, but asset class is a great way to do it. So for example, if you've got a successful business and you want to help someone start a restaurant that you're going to own, you definitely don't want that restaurant as part of your business, because one little food poisoning event and you could have real problems. So that's a lot of the reasons why we have a lot of different companies and why we put things in their own little buckets. Yes?
My name is Mitchell. So I was reading what you sent to us, and it seems like you had your aha moment as you were driving and saw the truck. But I feel like a lot of people, as they look for ideas, they try to find something that they're passionate about. Would you say that you were originally passionate about trucking when you had that moment? And if not, you developed that over time in order to stay in the industry for so long?
I was definitely not passionate about trucking. But my father said, find a big industry that you can make a small difference in. Transportation was about $1 trillion industry. I figured if I could get 1% of $1 trillion, that would be a pretty decent sized business. And so, for me, it was fortunate that that was the case. The other big thing is in transportation, there was not a lot of technology. And so I entered into a market that didn't have physicists and MIS guys very involved in that industry. So it was really a big open field for me. Have I become more passionate about trucking and transportation? I have now spent a whopping total of about 30 seconds of my life inside the cab of a truck. And that was before the salesman pulled me out and said, get out of the way, I've got real customers here. So I'm not certain I'm passionate about trucking, but I am passionate about helping my customers make money and have good lives. So, right here.
So my name's Kaya, and I just, as we heard earlier, you started in physics, and now you're like an entrepreneur. So how did you anticipate that change from the beginning, or?
No, I was really hoping to go work for Livermore Labs, but there are some physicists that have like white hair and it stands on end and they wear a bow tie all the time. I am not one of those physicists. And I learned that pretty early on. In fact, my advisor when I graduated from college suggested that I go to business school because he said I had phenomenal problem-solving skills, but I wasn't very good at the theoretical stuff. So, the cat's in the box, it's in an airtight, sealed box. It's in there for 50 years. Is the cat dead or not? The cat's dead! No, until you open the box and look, you can't tell that the cat's dead. So it's not dead until you open the box. No, it kind of went the wrong way with me. And then they had numbers to prove it. Well, or letters or symbols to prove it. And that didn't work out well for me either. But my skill at being able to solve people's problems and use technology to do it was really good. So for one of my physics projects, I created a, what would you call it, a spy microphone out of a salad preservation dish. So you guys, you're probably too young to remember. They used to make Tupperware. And in the Tupperware, they had this kind of little domed green lid, so you put your head of lettuce in there and you sealed it in there and it kind of kept it fresh. Anyway, I took the dome lid and made a sound detecting microphone that would spin in circles until it detected a sound, and then it would record whatever sounds were made. Now, mind you, this is in the 1980s. My professor said, you have great skills, but you're not going to be able to use them in Livermore Labs. There's other agencies that would love to get your skills. So, computers, love them.
So, Truckstop, you weren't necessarily passionate about trucks, but what about your other businesses that you started? Did you try and start things that you were interested in, or did you just look for good ideas where you could improve upon?
Unfortunately, my customers tell me everything that I'm supposed to do. And so all the businesses that we've essentially started, well, except for the airplane business. That was a personal business that I really enjoy. Except for that, it's things that our customers have asked us to do for them. And so in, 2 weeks ago now, we were down in Puerto Vallarta, and we took 20 of our customers down to Puerto Vallarta, locked them up in a hotel, and said, tell us what we're doing right, tell us what we're doing wrong, tell us what you want us to do for you that you'll pay us more for. And they did. And so now we've got our marching orders for what we're developing for our customers for this next year, because they've already told us, if you'll develop this, we'll pay you. We're like, we can do that.
So one of the things, if I can just add on to that, so I have never seen customers in my whole entire life, and I'm sure I can talk loud enough for those in the back, hopefully. I usually have a really good voice. But it is amazing to watch these customers. There will be, one year, in fact, they made Scott cry. He had been in the business for 18 years, and one of the guys in this, we call it CABS, Customer Advisory Board, and he goes, or the gal goes, you look like Walmart and you're supposed to be a technology company. Within 3 months of getting back home from this trip, we were on a cruise, they changed the website within 3 months. And so these customers know that they are being heard. And it's been really cool because since then, they've even given us more ideas. They've even told us how much they would pay for it. And they are so willing to give us ideas because they know it's going to help them and their business be better. And so it's really cool to get your customers to tell you what to do next. Because if you get enough of them, then you know what to do next. Because you can't tell people what they need. That's hard. That's hard work. But if you get them to tell you what they need, then it's easy, because they already told you what they need. That's easy to fulfill, but it's hard to tell them what they need. So that's what's so cool about this customer advisory board. I know of no other place that takes their customers and does that and actually trusts them and follows through with that. And that's why it's huge for our companies to have our customers be able to be a part of it. It's really neat. We also take the spouses, so that's a lot of fun, so they're more willing to come, and we have a lot of fun together.
Yeah, so we lock them up for a day, then we let them out to play for a day, then we lock them up for a day again, so that we don't wear them out. It's kind of like college, too many classes in a row, you just get burned out. Name.
As you've nailed, my name's McKay. As you've nailed, you said that, and in the reading it goes over that customer feedback and ideas and word of mouth advertising have been the primary drivers of growth in the business. So my question is, when you started out, it says that in the first year you were acquiring 100 new customers a month. What was your marketing strategy to first get those first customers to finally start getting word of mouth, get customer feedback?
It was interesting. We had some very powerful search engines on the internet, one called Lycos and one called Alta Vista. And those two search engines had gone through and categorized most of the websites that existed upon the planet. And ours was the only one that dealt with transportation. So every person who got on AOL or CompuServe and logged in and said, I really want to find out if there's something about trucking or freight or transportation, we were the only website that existed. It really was kind of a weird situation. Yeah. And then, of course, people would start to use it and say, it's great. And they'd tell their friend, and their friend would say, well, how do I get the internet? And they'd say, I don't know, call these guys. So they'd call us, and we'd be like, do you have a local dial-up in your area? Are you AOL, CompuServe? And they'd be like, what's that? Do you need a computer for this? We'd be like, yeah. So, back here.
My name's Whitney, and I'm just interested in you and your wife's dynamics of being in business and being married. How does that work pros and cons?
Oh, good. That's you, babe.
So Steve was actually hoping somebody would ask that question. So Scott and I got married when I was 40. I'd never been married before, so he is already successful in his business.
Hey, Carmen, come use the mic so the recording will pick you up better.
Okay.
The recording?
Oh, we're recording? Ooh, that's scary. Okay, promise not to swear. Okay, just kidding. So it was really weird coming into a marriage that was already successful entrepreneurship. So we live in a town of 1,400. So you're what, a tenth of our whole city right here? Okay. And so and he'd also been mayor. He was in the bishopric right before I came. And so everybody knew him. So he's like a celebrity. As he calls it, I'm the whale in the mud puddle, okay? And so I come along, and it was really hard in the beginning because everybody would stare at me, and it was quite embarrassing because I'm just me, you know? I mean, I was working 5 jobs before I met him. I mean, I had my own home, I had my own car. I was successful. I was helping a guy start his physical therapy office, you know. My life was very successful. I used to be a travel agent. I've traveled all over the world. You know, I get with this guy, and all of a sudden, I become like superstar. And it was like really weird. I even had one lady tell me, well, I can't talk to you. And I'm like, what? And she goes, I can't talk to you. You're too successful because you married Scott. It wasn't because of everything I'd done in my life before. It was because I'd married him. And I tried to explain to people, I work harder than he does. And in fact, when we were emailing each other, that's kind of how we got to know each other. And it wasn't, I didn't even know who he was. So he knew my aunt. He was home teaching my aunt. And he asked her if she knew any single women. That's how I came along. And so
Home teaching works.
Home teaching works, so do it.
That's word of mouth marketing, right?
That is
That
word of mouth. And so what was funny, my aunt told me he was a successful businessman in New Plymouth, Idaho, in a town of 1,400. So in my head, I went, great. He's a manager at McDonald's. Woohoo! He's successful. And yeah, he's a burger flipper. And it was funny, and we had been emailing each other for 2 or 3 weeks when he was asking me what I do, and I was a volleyball ref, a softball umpire, plus I had a 40-hour job, and all this other kinds of stuff. And he goes, man, I own 8 businesses, and I think you're busier than I am. And I'm like, wait, who are you? And I start Googling him. My brother had already Googled him. He thought I had. And I'm like, no, who Googles somebody in New Plymouth, Idaho? I mean, really? He's a manager at McDonald's. Anyway, so it was neat for me to be with him, though. He gave me the greatest trick. So, sweetheart, you need to come over. So he taught me this when we were dating. He goes, sweetheart, if you really want me to pay attention, he goes, you have to do this. Because when he gets in front of the computer, and you entrepreneurs, when you guys get focused, you guys know that nothing else exists, right? Okay? So he goes, you have to do this to me. Yes. Okay, so I have to get him to focus on me to pay attention. And so I've helped him to learn that when I do that, that means that it's my time. But I also have to be considerate to realize he's an entrepreneur, and I need to realize his time's valuable for his business as well as me. And so you have to find that balance. But it was hard in the beginning because he was already successful. And so I had to learn how to be just as successful with him. Luckily, everything I'd done in my life prepared me for him, which was really cool. He goes, I don't want you to get lost in my life. And I'm like, well, what do you do? He goes, trade shows, I travel, gospel, and community
service.
And what was funny, I've always been in trade shows, dealing with them. I used to work at the Salt Palace in Salt Lake. I've always done community efforts. I was a bouncer at a concert for
Garfunkel.
Garfunkel. He's not a nice man. Okay. He's not. And then I've always traveled, and I'm very strong in the gospel, and that was the 4 things. And so it's been really neat. Everything in my life prepared me for him. And it was really neat because in my patriarchal blessing, it told me that I would come to understand the things about me. And when I met him, that's when I knew and I understood everything about me, because my family would always ask me, why do you get involved with the community? Why are you doing these trade shows? And I'm like, I don't know. I truly did not know for 40 years why I did the things I did until I met him. And so it's really neat that Heavenly Father definitely has a plan for each of us, because it really, truly will work out the way it's supposed to be. Because had I married him straight out, he's a geek. I was a jock. I was in track in college, you know. I
was in the computer lab.
He was in the computer lab. We would have never met had we been in college together. And so it's been neat how he's less geeky, I'm less jockey, and we now can get along.
I'm still super geeky.
He is, but he's cuter now. So anyway, but
She's
that's
designed
how.
Herself.
But it's been neat to be able to work that through of learning how to help him still be an entrepreneur and me not take that away. but also help him. Okay, who watches Scorpion? Does anybody watch Scorpion on TV?
No, they're way too young.
Oh, come on, Scorpion's awesome. It's about geniuses. And they meet this gal, and she helps them. She's a waitress, and she helps them realize what the real world is like because they're so genius that they don't know how to relate to normal people. Okay, her name is Paige, and the main guy's name is Walter. Well, Scott's middle name is Walter. So I tell him
But I
I'm his
relate better
Paige.
to the world than he does. And I'm not a genius.
And so, but it's been really neat how we've been able to make that bond and be able to learn how to help each other. And it's just working it out together, but realizing we each have strengths and we need to back each other up in those strengths and not try to take away. And that's kind of how we've done it. Sorry, that's a really long explanation.
Well, we recorded it.
Yeah.
So balance is critical, and you have to balance everything. You have to balance family, you have to balance the business, you have to balance your church callings, and you have to balance yourself. So for me, I'm pretty good. I work 8 to 5. I try not to go before 8. I try not to go after 5. When I come home with my family, I'm home with my family. When Sunday comes, I don't worry about work. I worry about everything else. So it's literally about finding those balances and making sure that you set up those parameters for yourself. Because, yeah, when you're first starting the business, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. There is no breaks. The first 5 years I was in business, I did not get a vacation. My vacations were going to trade shows. Yeah, no balance. No bueno. So, yes?
My name's Maddie. When you're first starting out, what's the best way to solve like cash flow problems?
The best way to solve cash flow problems is not to have them. Okay? Cash flow is the absolute killer of businesses. You can have a great idea and everything else. If you don't have the cash to back it up, it really is a problem. I know that all of you are probably too young to remember Star Trek Deep Space Nine. But in Star Trek, oh, we got one in the back that knows it. Okay, our film guy knows it. There we go. They had a group of business guys called the Ferengi, and they had a lot of rules of acquisitioning for acquiring wealth, but the only one I remember, and my favorite one, is exploitation begins at home. When you start a business, exploit everyone around you to work for free. It will help with your cash flow issues. But that is seriously, cash flow is what kills every business. Don't overspend. Yeah, it's not good. And the sooner you get your company to break even, the better you'll be. My expenses when I started, I kept them low enough that I had only been in business about 6 months and I was already at break even, which is almost unheard of in business. Traditionally, it's you'll lose money the first year, the second year you'll break even, the third year you'll make money. So, yeah, the faster you can get to cash flow positive, the better, and don't overspend on anything. Regardless of what you want to look like, your prestige and your outer appearance is far less important than positive cash flow. Yes?
Can you speak a little bit more to how you do market research when you don't have access to an established client base or for a new product?
No, I really probably can't. I have a whole department that does that kind of stuff. Our challenge is we have kind of a captive market. And it's not really growing, it's not really shrinking, it's kind of morphing a bit.
But start telling about Sprint. How do you kind of got started? I mean, it's very basic for Sprint and for access.
Oh, okay. I don't know, that's a completely different story. That's not going to answer her question.
Yeah, no, because that's how do you find people? How do you get responses?
Yeah, so when...
He's not a marketer,
No.
just so you know.
No, I've already explained that. They know I can't market. So when we first started the business, we had Sprint as our long distance provider. It may seem weird, but long distance back in the days that you guys were born if you got a smoking hot deal, was 25 cents a minute. Okay? So think about that. Your business, every time someone called in to talk to you, it was going to cost you 25 cents a minute. You didn't want people on the phone very long to stay cash flow positive. But Sprint did a promotional, they called it Phone Free Friday, which meant that you could use the telephone all you wanted on Friday and they wouldn't charge you for the long distance. So I went out and I got a couple of books on people in my industry, and I went through and manually typed in all the fax numbers for every company that was in there. And on Fridays, I would hook up all my computer faxes and just send out blast faxes essentially to all these companies. There were no blast faxing services. No one had email. It really was quite unique. But that's how we preserved our cash and acquired our customers in the early beginning. What sort of product are you looking to research?
A couple. One is more of a home-based product, the other one's an app.
Okay. Apps, word of mouth is by far the best. You know, if you can get Jay-Z to stand up and say, I use her app, it's great, you know, works well for some people. But home-based products, it's a bigger challenge because now you're in that consumer market. Best thing you can do is have some people use it, make sure that Amazon sells it, and some things of that nature.
Get the mommy bloggers to know.
Yeah, mommy bloggers. They're not that big in Idaho.
But I'll bet there are Idahoans who are following some mommy bloggers.
I bet there are.
Get the right mommy bloggers for that kind of thing.
Yeah. Next question. Yes?
So my name is Mike Little. My question is, how do you balance when you're, because a lot of these ventures, I'm sure you didn't know what you were doing going into it. Like,
I appreciate that.
But how do you balance bringing someone in who knew what they were doing to help out with that, with specific aspects, and learning the things you needed to?
Well, I didn't hire a computer programmer until we were 4 years old. So to start out with, I bought a book at Barnes & Noble on how to program what I needed to program on the internet. That's where I started. And from there, I mean, unfortunately back in those days, all your learning on how to program came from books. And so that's what I did. Today, if you want to learn a new programming language, you just go online and there's enough reference material that you can write pretty much what you need to do. So I always did it myself to start out with, save money. Today we have, I don't know, 40 or 50 developers that do all sorts of weird stuff and strange languages that I've never even heard of. And so, you know, once you get to that point, then you can bring in the resources that you need. But to identify specifically what you need for each situation, right now we do essentially competitions. Who can write the best code for the fastest thing? All of our stuff is essentially database query. So they've put me up against Mongo, Hadoop, and Kafka. And MySQL will still beat them. And so excuse me, not MySQL. MySQL will still beat what they can produce because I'm so used to resource constraints instead of library bloat that makes a huge difference. Yes? What lessons did I learn in leadership? The lessons I learned is the buck stops here. When something goes right, you get credit for it. When something goes wrong, you get credit for it, regardless whether it was you or not. So my son, when he turned off the battery backup supply to the router in our building, and the entire internet in our building went down, and our service went down, and everything was down, and the phones were ringing off the hook, and people were screaming, you know, you're the leader. You get to take it. I don't know if you guys have had the opportunity or will get the opportunity to take Gary Rhodes' class. He gave us just a brief taste of it at our founders conference. And I really loved what he said. He said, stop, then think, and then lead. And I've really been trying to implement that into my life, because as a leader, people will follow you. They may follow you off a cliff. They may follow you to the promised land. But it's a unique position of responsibility, and so you have to be very cautious about how you utilize it.
My name is Benjamin. Venturing out, making so many businesses, you've probably made mistakes and had errors. What is one common mistake you wish you would have avoided? In your first starting out in your business, what is one common mistake you wish you would have never had?
Probably the only one I wish I had avoided was I wish I had read the IRS regulations more closely when it comes to payroll taxes. The government is very sensitive if you do not pay payroll taxes in the way that they wish it to be done. Even though you may have done it completely and totally correctly, that still is no excuse for not doing it in the timely fashion that they wish. That's probably the only thing that I can really look back on and say, I really wish I would have done that better. But some of the biggest mistakes that people make as they're doing this is they forget that integrity and the truth is more important than business and the dollar. I have seen many a company go down in flames for essentially just flat out lying. We had a lawsuit against Sprint where there was $10 million on the line. Not a trivial sum of cash. And in the lawsuit, Sprint had discovered a file on my computer that was their silver bullet. It was going to win them the lawsuit. And my attorney gets a hold of me and he says, does this file exist on your computer? And I went and looked, and yeah, sure enough, that file existed on my computer. And he's like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to come up with a story, and we're going to have to, do all of this kind of stuff, and basically I need you to write an affidavit that kind of lies and says that you never received this file and all this. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. He's like, then you are going to lose this lawsuit. And I'm like, I would rather lose this lawsuit and lose $10 million than lie to a federal judge. And so my attorney's like, well, all right, what do you want me to do? And I said, I want you to write a note, explain to the judge that I didn't realize that this file was on my computer, that, basically mea culpa. If this is truly the case, if this is the silver bullet, then, you're going to shoot me with it, and that's fine. And he's like, I'll write it, but I'm advising you against it. I said, all right. So he starts writing my affidavit to turn into the federal judge. And I'm sitting there looking at this file, and I'm going, where did this file come from? What in the heck is this? Well, turns out that that file was associated with something else completely different from 2 years previous. So I get a hold of my attorney, and I said, hey, this file belongs to this thing over here. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah, really. It was a different contract we had done with Sprint. And I said, do these kinds of things transfer between contracts? He's like, absolutely not. If it was not part of the contract, it's not part of the contract. So he sends in a note to the judge that says, Judge, we appreciate that they said Scott has this file, but that file is associated with something completely separate from what this case is about. And the judge said, all right. If it's something completely different, it'll come out in the courtroom. Within 5 days, Sprint settled and gave us the $10 million. So telling the truth is the most important thing that can happen in your business. It was 50-50 if we'd win in court. But because we told the truth, we didn't lose. So always tell the truth in your business, always. There's no reason to, I mean, even when it's bad, you know, it's horrible to have to tell someone, yeah, we really messed up and we're sorry and here's your money back and all this kind of stuff, but always tell the truth. Next question. We only got about 5 minutes left. Yeah.
So it looks like you guys work with Idaho University High School to develop the educational plans for students. Is that more like a business venture, or is that like a way to give back to the community?
It was interesting. We tried to set up a scholarship fund for our employees, and we tried to set it up as an endowment so that it would grow and that we would continually fund it so it would grow larger, and that the interest and the growth of that could be used to fund scholarships. We learned in Idaho that the Idaho Community Foundation doesn't do endowments, and so anything that grew out of what you'd given them is what they stuck in their pocket. And so we kind of determined, well, if we can't do any sort of endowment, there's no 501c3. Do you guys remember the IRS attacking conservatives and not letting them do 501c3s? We couldn't do our own type charitable business to do that. The Idaho Community Foundation was the only vehicle we had, and it wasn't going to work. So we said, if we can't send our kids off to college and scholarship them, then better way is we'll bring college to our kids. So we started a program where we paid for all the dual credit costs for the kids in our high school except $25. So for about $500 over 4 years, they could get their associate's degree when they graduated. Pretty good college deal. And they were bought into it, and if they got an A or a B, we kept doing it. If they got a C in the class, they had to pay for the next class on their own, and then we would start to scholarship them again if they got A's and B's. And so all of our kids got really good grades. The program started taking off. In our little school district, we went from 43% of the kids going to college, university, or trade school to 86% of the kids going to college, university, or trade school in 2 years. In 4 years, it was 95% of the kids who were going to college, university, or tech school. And in the 4th year, the state of Idaho said, New Plymouth School District has figured it out. College is way too expensive for kids to spend 4 years rehashing high school, their first 2 years. Let's do it all in high school. So now the state of Idaho pays for all the high school kids dual credits across the entire state. So, I mean, just something that we did out of necessity is ending up being a blessing for everyone in our state. Now, we don't work too much with the universities. I had a daughter go to ISU, and fortunately, no one in our family has ever wanted to go to BSU, so we're still safe. But of course, we're not smart enough to get into BYU, so we run into that problem as well. Other questions?
Last one.
Last one. See, I hate these rooms. They're just, most of the rooms I lecture in are really up close, where you got everyone down close. Okay, you haven't asked one yet.
My name is Ryan. Do you have any more free money?
I do. I do. Actually, Steve does, but yes, I do. But that wasn't a good question. Okay. Anyone else? Hold on. Superman had a question. He twitched.
So, yeah, my name is Jared, and I was just wondering, besides being focusing on business in the beginning and changing to entrepreneurship, did you ever stay with anything that really focused on what you were originally planning on?
Well, it's interesting. I never thought I would be an entrepreneur, but when you're unemployed in New Plymouth, Idaho, you know, Mother Necessity kicks up and says you need to create your own job. So that's why I became an entrepreneur. But a lot of the stuff that I've done A lot of the algorithm development, and because we do things like rate forecasting, where we're forecasting out 52 weeks into the future. A lot of my physics, math, and training have really helped with a lot of that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I've never sent a rocket to the moon. I've never determined how to make the perpetual engine run or something like that. But, you know, a lot of the things I learned in school were applicable. More applicable, though, was all the work experience I had when I was at school. All those really weird, odd jobs that you take to get through college were what helped prepare me to be able to work in transportation.
Well, Scott, we've come to the end of our time. Thank you very much for leading this discussion. We're going to do Q&A upstairs, and those who said their name as they were asking questions, yeah, I've been writing down names. So Julie, Bronson, Mitchell, Kia, McKay, Whitney, Maddie, Mike, Oscar, Benjamin, Jared, come on down, and the Moscrips have something for you. Please join me in thanking Scott for coming today.